Okay, week 2 underway. That's where I've landed on this repair here, and I've got to say, for the first time actually using an English wheel to make a panel, and the shrinking stump, and well, I'm stoked with that. I'm absolutely stoked. Yeah, I spent a bit of time last night beating it and getting it to shape so that it's, because it did, like I said in the last video, heat does some funny things. You can see some slight ripples there, but and a few little holes that I'm going to have to patch up there. But overall, for a first attempt, I'm stoked with that. I've got to trim this back. You can see it's not quite the right shape, but I'm actually going to cut that front lip off when I weld in this under here. But I'm not in a rush to do that because I've got a suspicion that I'm going to be replacing the whole thing, because that's not good. So I got to figure out what I'm doing this week. I've spent my first little bit of money, so we'll start a tally board, and we'll talk about my first purchase, and my $0 build is no longer a $0 build. It's more like I think it's about a $36 build now. While I was working on this section here, I got quite intimate with this part of the roof, and I started to realise that there's little dents and funny shapes all over here that'll need to be knocked out and hammered and dollied and worked on. So that'll be part of the journey, is, you know, teaching you guys how to hammer and dolly and do all those things. So how to work the metal and to reshape it, and what some of those principles are. One of the things you can do if you're not sure about the shape of something is get a file. Get a file on it, and it only takes a second before you start to see that you've got highs and you've got lows, and you start to see exactly what you have to do to the metal to get it back up to where it needs to be. So, yeah, I'll be working on that this week. I always like to keep the bit I cut out for a while, and once it's welded in and planished up, and I like to lay it back over and just remind myself exactly how bad it was. So, you know, that's testament. It was Swiss cheese, so I'm so stoked with that repair. Yeah. Now onto this side. I wasn't going to show you guys this side because it was basically going to be a repetition of that one, except as I'm going along, I'm starting to do more of a hand shape on this one. I've realised. So same basic principle. I've cut it out, but not all of you will have a bead roller, an English wheel or a planishing hammer. So forgive me, I've already started it, but looking at it now going, you know what, not everybody's got these tools, so let's show them. So like the other one, I've been able to form the shape with the English wheel, but you could do that more or less with anything round. So a similar kind of arc, I guess you'd call it, to what you're working with, but that's going to cause problems. That's going to cause big raises. So just what I've done is I've just started tacking it in place, not tacking it in place, screwing it in place. Okay. Sorry about that, my compressor kicked on. Yeah, I started screwing in place, and this here fits really good, right? And you think, oh, that's good. Well, you must have done a bit of bead rolling, or here I go again, English wheeling or whatever. I've done a little bit, but not a lot. like I'm just at the beginning of this one. But it wasn't sitting right. It was kicking off. So I got it so that it was sitting roughly where I wanted it, and I put the first screw in here, and then I put the second screw up the back, and that basically ties in where I want the shape to be on the car while I'm figuring everything out. And what was happening is this corner was kicking right up. So I've put another screw there, and then I put a screw down here, and it was really arcing then. So I put a few screws in, and these screws, they represent tack welds, basically. They're just holding it in place. So this was blistered right up, but it's basically in the right shape that I want along the front. I'm obviously going to have to trim it to the right arc, but that is the lowest point. My rust starts here. Alright, so I've got that much overhang, so I've got a bit of leeway here. So I've set it so that that is my base point, and then everything else is overhanging or right on the edge. Remember, I've got to make the inner lip up still. Now, what I did, I'll undo it so I can show you what I did. What I've done is I've done something called tucking, and you can use a tucking fork or a pair of pliers or whatever. But what tucking is you get your pliers in and you just put a big kink in, and then you come the other side and you put another kink in, and you're just doing that, and you're just shrinking your metal down. Alright, and see how that's forming, I don't know if you can see it, see how that's forming this way. Alright, and then on this corner here, which is a big one, we're going to spread them a little bit. We're going to put decent sized ones in. What we're doing is we're gathering up the excess steel, because what's happening is, just like with a big sheet of paper or whatever, when you fold it, it scrunches, it crinkles up. Right? If you crinkle it up, it starts to hold shape. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to get the shapes that I want by twisting these edges. Alright. This is not the exact way to do it that other people will show you to do it, but this will certainly get you out of trouble. Alright. Because remember, we're only getting it rough. We're not getting it spot on. So that's another way to do it. If you have a look, that's quite reasonable. It still hasn't brought the back up. I still don't need extra tacks along here or screws along here, because that hasn't affected this at all. That has just simply given us shape that way and shape that way. So you don't need English wheels. You don't need metal benders. They help. They certainly make it quicker. But you can do it with simple tools like this, and it's going to it's going to work. Again, Make It Customs, Carl Fisher. I'm trying to learn how to add these things to my channel so that you guys can just click on a link or whatever. I'm not tech savvy, and I'm trying to figure this out as I go. But he just made a pair of front pillars up for Zephyr he's customizing, and he makes one up by hand, and then in the next, and it takes about 45 minutes, and he does the other one up. No, he does one up with all his planishing hammers, machines, whatever, and the other one he does mostly by hand, and he shows you how they come out almost identical. So yeah, there's nothing that can't be achieved if you don't have specialized tools. Fitzy's, what's he called? Fitzy's. Anyway, I'll try and put him in the link as well. Fitzy does panel work, and he makes complex panels up out of really simple stuff. So you, like I say, you don't need all the U-Butte stuff. Let me set you up, and I'm going to get beating on this. I used to use, U-Butte chisels and all the rest of it, because I thought, oh, if anybody ever sees me using what I'm using, they'll tease me, but I actually don't give a stuff if they do. That is a woodwork chisel, and it's beaten to heck, and it's bullied around. Look at the edge on that. Right? But I use that all the time for, I'm about to use that to get this down to where I want it. Yeah. Alright, enough waffle. I'll set you up and then we'll go from there. Alright. I need to beat along this line. It's slightly high here. I need to beat along this line to push it into the rain gutter. And there's a quite a sharp angle. I'd say it's a right angle. Body line that cuts off somewhere around here. I have to measure it exactly on the other side, but we just need to get it into this right now. So again, like I say, I'm going to use this to start it with. I might go to some other tools in a little while, but for now, let's start with that. Let me get my hammer. What's that thing I always say? Work with what you got. So, yeah, if you don't have these specialised tools, there's another way to do it. Don't go overboard. You don't want to go bending out your guard, your rain guard or rain gutter. You don't want to force that out. All right? And what that has all done has caused a big blister down here that I'm going to have to take care of. Another way you can do it, which I have done in the past before I had specialised tools, I used to just put cuts in, right? And I would cut it, and I would cut little V's out of it, just little ones, and I'd knock it down and I'd overlap the metal, and then I'd trim off the excess so that you basically just had a line there, and then I would just weld that up. Perfectly acceptable, perfectly good way of doing it. Can you see that? Can you see this? How it's bulging? Alright. In fact, I might just do that on this side to show you how it works. In fact, I'm going to do it that way. Very acceptable. I did it on my daughter's Feroza, and it turned out way better than I thought, because that had no corners to the roof. I think that one was probably as bad as this one, as far as the roof was concerned. It had a lot of rust. There's a lot of rust, that thing. Took me quite a few weeks to get that right. So I've got that down to where I want it, but now I have to get it into where I want it. So I'm going to come from here. Just keep working the problem, working the solution. Sorry about the compressor. Every time I talk, my sheep can hear me. Jesus once said, my sheep will know me by my voice. And when you own sheep, you really understand that statement. The amount of stuff that drops while I'm doing this. Okay, so you can see that it's in the rain gutter. See how it creeps up? So that was overhanging before, and now it's creeped up. It's a pain when it does that. Sometimes you've got to weld an extra bit in. I hate when it happens. I might get away with this one, I'm not sure. Especially when I creep this back down. But yeah, metal, it stretches and shrinks, and like I've said before, I think it's Ray Shalene says that it's like clay. And it is. Steel is like clay. It's not as solid as you think it is. It's very malleable, and it does weird things, and you know, you can do strange stuff by manipulating the molecules in it and heating and shrinking and cooling, and yeah, crazy stuff. Right, now what was I going to do? Because I can't remember. I just thought before I better do this. I can't remember. So this is what I'm talking about. See how that's puckered right up? I was putting a bit of shape in it before with the hammer and the planishing hammer, but now that's decided, since I've put these tucks in it. They're not captured tucks either, alright? So, first things first. Since I've put the tucks in it, over here, it's pushed that up, right? So, as I've shrunk this down, it's pushed that out. These are tucks. These are open tucks. If they were captured tucks, I'd go and I'd take this piece over to probably to my block of wood over there, and I would whack the end here really, really hard, and that would close that over, and then that captures the tuck, and then that pushes it back. But for the sake of this exercise, I'm not going to do that, because we have our general shape, right? A little bit high over here, right? And like I say, I'm going to show you how I would normally deal with that if I didn't have any of this specialty stuff. This one here, I'm going to cut. So let me put the pen lid in my mouth, and I want to talk to you, so that didn't make any sense, did it? Right, sorry if I'm giving you vertigo. I'm going to make a cut here, right? And then I'm going to just open it up a little bit, so it'll be like a V. I'm doing this through the camera. What an idiot. Okay. And that'll be my first one. And then I'll tap this side down, and I'll decide, oh, actually I'll probably come out a little bit further on it. I'll tap this side down, and then I will decide whether I need to cut a bigger V or a lesser V, and whatever I do, I may have to put another one over here, I may have to put another one here. You know, I work it, but I start with one, a pretty mild one, and then I do a little bit of tapping to get it down to the shape I basically want, and then I decide where it needs more. This is perfectly acceptable. It's going to be ugly compared to that side. It's going to be an ugly repair, because you just can't get it as nice doing it this way. But once you put a fill over it, nobody will ever know. In fact, let's go for a walk. Come on. Hello. 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 Give it a little headbutt then. Hello. Come on, babies. See? They know you by your name, by the way you call them. Okay, this is my daughter's Feroza. It was the thing that started this channel. It was the inspiration for it. This here didn't exist. This whole pillar didn't exist when I started it. And this repair here is exactly what I'm talking about. If you go back through the old footage or one of my shorts on there, it'll show you that was one of those fold and bend and shape and then tack type repairs. What else was? That was, I've only just made my English wheel. front of this bonnet was. It's not perfect, but I didn't go for perfect on this because it was a four-wheel drive that a 17-year-old was going to drive. That same thing. So those shapes, they go this way, they go that way. Oh, that way, right? They're complex shapes, but they're just done by cutting and beating and manipulating the steel. You don't need all the tools. And you wouldn't know it. And that doesn't have a load of bog in it. I can promise you that. It's got a very, very, very thin layer of filler. Bondo, I think you call it in America. We call it bog over here. Anyway, whatever you want to call it, there's not a lot of it in there. You know, it's to the point where I've forgotten where a lot of the repairs were on this because it's been well over a year. I know there was a repair up there. Yeah, lots of them. But yeah, anyway, that's my point. My point is you don't need all the gear to do basic stuff. This is me herd. Come on. I was going to cut it with the angle grinder, but I think I'll just use tin snips for the purpose of this because A, it's less noisy, but B, it's about doing it simply and without tools, isn't it? Now, you could take it off, unscrew it or cut it, put it back on. That would be perfectly fine. So I've made my first cut. I'm trying to think which hammer I want to use. I'm going to go a little bit further than what I initially said. Alright. And I'm going to tap him over. Sorry for the noise. Whew. Me rain gutter's just falling apart. Alright. I don't know what you can see of that, but I'll bring you around here. Where am I? There. Okay, I've made this cut here. Now, I've belted it over. And see how that's kind of the shape. I mean, it's not the shape I want. There's still a high here. But it's kind of the shape I want. And we're only roughing it in. Like I said last time. You rough it in. You get it right. And then you weld it in. And then you're still going to have to do some hammer and dolly work anyway. It's a lot of hammer and dolly work. And by the end of your project, you will be insanely good at feeling highs, lows, for figuring out how to find them. Different techniques I'll show you. You'll have a hand for it and you will have an eye for it, and you'll just have a real feeling of, yep, I know that needs that, or I know that it needs this or whatever. Alright, waffling again. I'm good at waffling, aren't I? I'm sorry about that. Except I'm not, because you're obviously watching me and you know what you're getting in for, so thank you. Alright, I'm going to come up just a little bit higher. I see that. I believed it. Quite a bit. Well, how far am I going to go today? Am I going to weld this? Bit of a headphone warning. If you've got your headphones in, it's going to be loud. Now, I'm going to come down with here. Down here. I'm bringing it this way. Watch what I do with my hammer, and I'll explain it in a minute. Notice how it bounces? It just seems to give you more stability, and it directs the metal a little easier when you can get it to bounce. You'll notice when I'm doing hammer and dolly work, I can get it to skip along the dolly or along the panel on top of the dolly, and it makes the metal conform. And I don't know why, I don't know the science behind it, but it does. It makes the metal conform. Plus it makes you look good when your friends are around and you can do it. They're like, whoa, this guy knows what he's doing. Alright, headphone warning. Now, I should have shown you this, but I didn't. So I apologise again for that, but that was peak, that had a peak on it. Alright, I've just knocked that peak down. So can you see, where am my finger? There. Right, that had a peak on it. And, okay, this had a peak on it after I belted it down. And I've just given that one hit and it's pushed that peak in. It's moved it really. Hasn't pushed it in, it's just moved it. So we've got a bit of a high here. Now, watch this. Okay. So we've got that to there. We've knocked the peak in. Which, when I say peak, it's just a pointy where the two bits of the uncut metal joint push up where two bits of cut metal Granville. All right, now headphone warning again. I'm going to hit down this way. Okay, now if you look at that from the front, and I push that down, you can see that it's really starting to take shape. All right, that's not far off being the right shape. And in fact, probably is good enough for me to start thinking about welding that in. This side's a lot better than the other side. That side required a lot more because there was a lot more of the roof gone. This, where's this to? This really only comes back to about here. But I just wanted to make sure I was all the way back to good steel, and feeling on the inside, the good steel starts there and goes back. Let me grab my trusty torch. Well, when you get a torch in there, you realise that you're fooling yourself, because the good steel must be further back under this. This side's way better than the other side. But what I thought was rust under here is actually a bit of the underlay that was like that there. Just the glue from the underlay. That's that other repair. Okay, that's what that looks like inside. Last week's repair. Should we leave those screws in there? I think not. And I got a bit of work to do to this top brace. But I'm going to wait till I've got it on the spit. But, you know, I'm going to have to grind all this out back to bare metal and put rust converter in it and then prime it. I've been watching a channel where the guy does up Falcons, Astal Designs I think it's called, and yeah, he had this gel for sucking out the rust from his bare metal, and oh my gosh, amazing stuff. And you can use it over and over and over again. So I've got to find that, and I've got to get me some of that, because I've never seen anything like it in my life. I have used Ranex, not Rain-X, that you put in your windscreen wiper bottle. Ranex, you can buy it at Bunnings. I've used that before. I didn't love it. May use it again, but I'm going to try and get hold of this gel. So yeah, well, I actually don't need that big a repair. So I may trim that back a little bit even. I don't know. Decisions to be made at a later date. Probably still today, possibly tomorrow. Starting to pull up here, but inside I've got a lip. What is it? Like a bracket inside, part of the roof. frame. So I can, if I go on the edge here and screw that way on the angle towards you, that'll pull that down. See how this one's up? That's because it keeps hitting that inner lip. So I'll put one in here, and then I'm going to move that one over a little bit. Yeah, I'll do that now. What I have been doing is pulling these rubbers off, because we don't need them. We're not trying to keep rain out of these or anything sealed in. But also, if you use them and you start tacking, it catches that rubber on fire, and it doesn't, like, it's not bad, it doesn't take off, but it stinks, and it's not, I'm sure it's not good for your health. Alright, bit of a noise warning. A lot of noise warnings today. Oh, that didn't like it at all. I use wood ones. You can use steel ones. I find that steel ones chop out the holes more though. So they drill easier, heaps easier, but because the cutting edge is wider, I just find they tend to chew out the holes more, and you can't keep taking it on and off. Do you mind? That was very rude. Anywho, keep on. They never take that long. We'll get a different one. I reckon they're only fighting me because it's on camera, because they never fight me like this. Right, see how that's lifting it up and pushing that down? I forgot to take the rubber off this one. There you go, rubber's off. It all comes back to where it needs to be when you're done, so don't stress about that. Alright, we're getting a bit of that puckering up because we've changed shape down here. The metal's got to go somewhere. It spreads its load out over the remaining steel, and because it's a fairly flat surface, it's just pushing it and causing those little pucker ups. I'm just going to move this one over so it's not hitting that. See, this is one that's been used 4 or 5 times, and it went straight through, so I don't know why those other ones were fighting. Rightio. Once you've got it like this, you pretty much got your shape that can be welded in. Because that's a little bit flat here, but I'll put in the shape for that. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so this is pretty much, this can be welded in. This is not quite right, that's not right, and this isn't right, so you wouldn't weld it in yet. But this section here, okay, I don't know where I got to because my phone died. So yeah, that shape, where are we? This shape is pretty good. This shape is pretty good. It's a little high there, but I don't even know if I need to come across that far yet. Got some work to do here. Alright, got a little bit of work to do here. Not a lot though. And I don't get too fussy here yet because I don't have, like on this side, let's go around there. That's not right. That's not finished. That's still got work to do. And see how I talk about it still being a little bit high, right? That's mostly there, but I'm not going to finish this part of the repair. I'll fill up here. I'm going to fill, and I'm going to, so we start with something called Metal Mend. I'll show you that when I buy it. But I'll at least metal mend this between now and when, well, now and when I prime it, which won't be that far away because I don't want to leave it bare metal for very long. But I've still got to put all my lip and me stuff in here. But I'm not going to finish this edge, this corner, or that corner on that side. I'm not going to finish them until I've got my pillars done, because that would be, I might have to do my work twice then, you see. So get me pillars, and then I'll decide where I'm making my cuts and my joins and all of that stuff. And it's no point getting carried away now, because I'll be going ahead of myself. So, you know, like I'll fill up to here, and I'll fill across there, and I'll fill all of this, but I'll leave a section here. I also need to find a windscreen rubber for one of these things, because I don't have one of those, and I need to fit that up, even if it's with a like a plywood template of the windscreen, so that I can get a feel of what's going on, whether I've got it right. Because what will happen is, if you think about it, the windscreen rubber will sit along here somewhere, and I have done them before. When I was a much younger man, I did a whole repair and I didn't fit the windscreen rubber, and then we put the windscreen in, and this poor bugger's roof went like this. It went, it came up from the pillars, and then it kind of dipped away just a little bit, and then up again, and he had this hollow, and he wasn't too worried about it. We just put windscreen sealant in it, but I was so embarrassed. I was horrified. That still haunts me now, and that was, I don't know, 25 years ago. It was a long time ago. But yeah, so you want to have a windscreen rubber. I don't know what happened there, but my camera just told me, oh, maximum size reached, and kicked me out. Whatever. Yeah, so make sure you got a windscreen rubber. Don't finish this repair until you've joined it to whatever's next, because you may be way off. Yeah, and just take bites. We're having a win over here, and it's very simplistic compared to that one over there. That was I did a lot more on that than maybe I needed to. It was also my first time using the English wheel and everything, so maybe I just got a little excited. Alright, now I'm going to cut this. What I don't want to do is I don't want to cut too far. This is where what do you call it? Angle grinder blade's good, because you can just kind of run the blade down it, and you know where it's going to be. Alright, if we come around, we can see that is overlapped. Headphone warning. Right, and I'm quite happy to tack that. Weld that there, overlapping slightly, right, because I will burn that back with the welder. I will come in on the angle, and I will burn this edge back until they're connected where I want it, and get a bit more heat in. And while I'm doing those kind of repairs, I tack and bash, a cut and shut. I heard one the other day, a plough and trowel, which I hadn't heard before, but I thought that was pretty cool. Just bash it in and then fill it full of filler. Not that I recommend that at all. But yeah, I'll hold that down with a screwdriver, or Bad Chad calls it a third arm. He'll use something he puts on his chest and pushes in and holds it in place. But I mean, if I'm looking along there, I've got to knock this peak down. I may have to heat that and tap it down. I may have to come in a little more with me. Okay, it's a couple of nights later. I haven't done a lot. I've been very busy this weekend doing cleanups and stuff, and I've been at TAFE this week. So TAFE, for those of you in America, is trade school. Doing my mechanics apprenticeship stuff, so haven't had a chance to work on this. Right, I've put cuts in down here, and I've folded that around, beat it around. Remember, we're still just roughing it in. But if you look kind of from here, you can see that it's starting to take shape. I've got some roughing in to do. It's captured those tucks. It's caught the shape. So we've got our arc that way. We've got our arc this way. I've decided that I'm going to get rid of these screws here, and I'm going to pull the whole thing out, and I'm going to trim it back to just in front of the brace inside. That's good steel from what I saw inside. You'll have seen that earlier in the video. For me, it's a couple of days later. I'm trying to remember what I've told you guys and what I haven't. Happy with this. Happy with this. Not happy with this. This peak here, I've got to tap that down once I've welded all of this. You'll chase these, if you do this style, you'll chase these peaks forever. So just weld it in, and then usually put a bit of heat on it, and just tap down on the high spot to get it to go where I want it to with, can I see it? Oh yeah, hold on. With that hammer down there, I hit it with the pointy bit, just to tap him in and to gather it up. Otherwise, like I say, you'll chase it all night. Alright, I'm going to turn off the camera because it keeps dying on me, and that's why I cut out the other night and I gave up on it. My storage keeps running out, even though I have wiped off everything that's old, so I don't know what it's doing. Regardless, that's where I'm at. My boys and I were talking about some stuff, and they're like, where are we going to find these parts, you know? And I said, when you start restoring cars, they have a way of coming to you. So far since I've started the Green Limousine, I've been given a VF Valiant 4-door and a heap of stuff. But this happened this week. I was talking to my boys about jelly beans, and I got given these 14 by 9s, and they're rare as rocking horse poo around where I live. So to find them, or to be given these, is just a real honour. But yeah, that's a pretty cool thing, and I'm pretty blessed. So just, you know, when you start your project, you won't have everything. But like I say, the word gets around, people start talking to you about stuff. When you're scavenging for other stuff, you'll find what you need. I also got given, if I can get out of here without breaking a leg, a full set of these. I can't remember whether they're called globes or something different, but they will be good for another project down the line. I don't know. This is my son's. I'm going to pan around and show them this. This is my son's XB. It's a genuine GS. It's got a 302 Cleveland in it. That's been on the burner for nearly 10 years, so that's the next car that's getting done. But yeah, I just thought I'd show you guys this because it's just been really cool how things come flooding in, and to the point that I've actually got to start putting the brakes on and start saying no to some stuff. So that's a cool place to be. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this one. I've got a bit of framework to do, as you can see, and I'll get onto that and I'll weld it in before next time. Remember, it's free to be kind to one another, so be kind and get some projects and get stuck into it. I'll see you next one.